anybody who wants to watch the session afterwards. Okay, so we'll just get started. So before we go straight into Password Skills Plus, I just wanted to give everyone a bit of a background into the whole company. So Password English Language Testing has been operating in the international education sector since 2008. So we like to consider ourselves as sort of pioneers of online testing. We were doing it a long time before everybody else came along. And our tests are uniquely delivered by institutions themselves, where they can replace or enhance their own internal tests. Assessments can also be created for different purposes. So you've got foundation programs, admissions, student visa processes, and then the arrival testing of international students, benchmarking. There's lots of different purposes that the test can be used for. We do also have a maths assessment as well, which is widely used for admissions, arrivals, entrance testing as well. So you may not have heard of us before sort of Password Skills Plus came along, and that's because the tests are delivered under the university's brand. So they're delivered by the universities themselves under their own brand, but it's our content and we're facilitating those tests. But a couple of years ago, sort of around COVID, we received a lot of requests from our university partners to, offer a test which is delivered and administered by us. So that's where Password Skills Plus came from. It's not something that we thought that we would just do. It's actually from various requests and consultations that we had with our university partners as well. So that's when we created Password Skills Plus, which was the first secure at-home English language test for high stakes international admissions purposes. So for the very first time, we actually sold a test directly to students under our own brand. The test is still delivered at home. There's still live human proctoring, and the entire test sessions are video recorded and then reviewed by our human compliance team. There's so many online tests out there, so I always like to remind our partners that we very much embed humans throughout the entire test process. So that's something that sets us apart as well. When we're not sort of focusing too much on AI, humans are still integral to this whole testing process, especially for high stakes. So you may not know Crella, but this is a research group of language learning assessments experts. So they do a lot of research into English language learning and assessment, and they are the ones who designed and developed all password tests. They've also undertaken the formal alignment to the CFR of all password English tests as well. But one thing that I just wanted to draw your attention to was this diagram on the right-hand side, which is the password scores table. So as you can sort of see, a lot of the scores are very, very similar to IELTS. So as the test was sort of designed specifically for international admissions, and higher education institutions normally require a 6 or a 6.5 score for their programs. The highest test score that a student can actually get is a password 7 or above. So that can indicate a score of 7, 7.5, 8. It just means that their level of proficiency is above a 7. So they're more than, capable of undertaking a course in English, at university level and beyond. And then at the bottom there, you've got a pre-password. So normally, the lowest IELTS score would be a 4. But we actually go below that. So we go 3.53, and then there's a pre-password, which is essentially lower than a password 3. So often the entry requirements for your university programs are very similar to IELTS. So if the universities have benchmarked a 6 as what the students require, then that would often be a password 6 as well. So it's very, very similar. Now, when the test was designed, the idea was not to have a test that students can cheat from, or where they can memorize chunks of text and then just regurgitate that information in the test. It was designed to be a test that you just get up and take, and it will assess your language proficiency on the day of the test. So not how much can you memorize, how much can you learn, but what is your actual language proficiency. So that's why we have, limited test preparation. But we do understand that there is, a need for students to have proper preparation. So I will come on to that and what your students can do to prepare. So I'm now just going to talk about Password Skills Plus. We're going to go into the test taker process, how the students can set up their test, what the test requirements are, the test format. So we'll go through each of the 4 sections and what is included in each section, and then the test preparation as well, as I just sort of mentioned earlier. So in terms of the Password Skills Plus journey, the students will just sort of buy the test online. So as I said previously, the test was bought through the University Partners website. Password Skills Plus is bought directly from our website. The students will then receive 2 emails. The first is instantly sent to them. It's a confirmation email of their purchase, and that will have their test login. They need the test login on the day of the test, so please make sure your students keep that email safe. And then the second email comes about 12 to 18 hours later, and that is an email inviting them to create their online account and schedule their test. So once they receive that email, they can schedule their test straight away. They can schedule it from any day, any time that they want. There's no charge to schedule the test apart from if they want to schedule it within 72 hours. There's just an $8 charge, but they really don't have to pay that if they just schedule it, 72 hours later. That also gives them some time to prepare for the test as well. Once the test is scheduled, they can go off and prepare, and then on the day of the test, they just log in 10 minutes before the scheduled start time, and then they log in. They will be taken to the Proctor portal, where they will do an ID check, a room scan. So they literally just have to sort of move their camera around, show the room, and then they can start the test. Result certificates are then emailed to the students within 5 working days. They can then share this with the institution, and the institution has access to a validation portal where they can verify that the test certificate is indeed authentic. So, as I mentioned, this is just a sort of process. Here is just to sort of show you a quick visual of what the website looks like. This is where they would sort of buy the test. And then, yeah, they would get those 2 emails. There are some parts of the world which we consider to be high risk. At the moment, the countries on that list is only China. So if there's a student from China taking the test, they will just need to be subject to a pre-test ID check. The list of high-risk countries sort of changes sometimes. So at the moment, we only have China, but from time to time, we can add other countries or remove countries from that list as well. We also ensure that our students need to be familiar with the test rules and regulations. So we've got some documents on the website. It's our student handbook, our rules and regulations document. We just recommend that the students read these before they take their test. In terms of the test requirements, the very, very minimum requirements is to have a computer or a MacBook, so the students can't take the test on on a phone or a tablet. It's got to be a computer. A low-spec computer is fine. They need to have a valid passport, and they need to have a stable and reliable internet connection. So the computer needs to have a front-facing camera, so this could be external or built into their laptops. They also need to have a microphone and speakers because obviously they'll be speaking for the speaking test and they'll be listening to the audio clips for the listening test as well. So that's the sort of minimum requirements. The students will need to make sure that their passport is valid. So that is the only acceptable form of ID. Photocopies are not accepted, nor is a, expired passport. It's got to be a valid passport. Now, if the students have any issues with their internet sort of partway through the test, that's absolutely fine. They would not have lost any of the progress that they've made. Any progress is already saved as part of their test. All they need to do is get back in touch with the support team. We will help them to get back into their test, and we can also do a free remote session with them where we can check their computer and make sure that all of the requirements are sufficient for the test. If any students are nervous about, is my PC okay, anything like that, do I have the right requirements? Just get in touch with the support team and we will do a free remote session with you to check your PC. Now, in terms of the test setup, the students need to make sure that the computer language is set to English. They need to make sure that they are sat in a suitable environment with a desk and a chair. We've had some students try and take the test in a bathtub because they say they get better internet connection there. Things like that are not acceptable. They need to be sat in a suitable environment. Desk and a chair is perfect, and they need to have the door visible behind them. So if it's in a room like I am right now, this wouldn't be sufficient. We need to have the door behind the student to show that there's nobody coming in and out of the room. The students will then need to clear the room of all books, papers, phones, any unauthorized equipment, just to make sure that, it's all, it's all sort of cleared of anything, that they don't need to take the test. And then they just need to have their passport ready. They can have a water bottle, and they can have one sheet of paper with a pen or a pencil to take notes. Okay, coming on to the test format. The test is 3 hours and 5 minutes, and I know that some of you might think that that's such a long test, but it's always better to have students have more of an opportunity to show their English language proficiency. Sometimes shorter tests don't give students the opportunity to actually show their proficiency. They may be good in one section and not good in another, and having a longer test sometimes actually helps the students, and it might be a little bit daunting, but it actually sometimes, it's proven to actually have helped students as well. So the reading is 1 hour and 15 minutes. Of course, the students don't need to take the full hour and 15 minutes. If they're done before, they can just finish the test earlier as well. Writing is then 30 minutes, listening is 60, and speaking is 20. They can take a break in between the test modules if they wish. So after they've done writing, for example, before they start the listening, they can take a break. And the same goes for any modular breaks if they wish. All they need to do is ask the proctor, and then they can go and take their 5-minute break. So once the student has done their ID checks and the proctor's ready to start letting them into the test, they will be taken to a candidate form like this, a login page like this, sorry. So the students will need to enter the login, which was sent to them, and the proctor will have the password. So obviously the student can't enter the test without the proctor having checked their ID, checked their room. After that, this is the process that then takes place. So once the proctor clicks the password, the student will then click login on the bottom right here, and that will take them to this candidate details page. So here they will enter their full name, their date of birth, their passport number, and all of this information here, and they will just accept the terms and conditions. This is the information that will be entered into their certificate, so we need to make sure that it is their full passport name. They will then start the reading test. So here, the reading test comprises of 5 sections. Each of the sections get more and more difficult as you progress. So section 1 is just dragging and dropping some sentences to make a story. So you're just dragging and dropping the sentences into the correct order. Section 2, you've then got some paragraphs, and there are some words which are missing. You've got some words at the bottom. You've just got to drag and drop the words into the gaps to make the sentence make sense. There's always going to be more words at the bottom than there are gaps to fill. Section 3 is then you've got more chunks of text. You've got 8 multiple choice questions, and then you can select your answer. Section 4 is then you've got 7 paragraphs, and you've got to select the headings or the titles for those paragraphs from a drop-down list. And then section 5 is where you've got more and more text. This is where you're really sort of testing your academic English, and the students have got to summarize the text in the correct order. So you've got big chunks of text, and then you've got some sentences, and you need to just move the sentences into the correct order so that it summarizes the text above. There's always going to be a clock on the top right, so that's basically counting down to show the students how long they have left. And once they're done, they will click finish section. A pop-up always comes up here that says, are you sure you want to complete the section? Because you cannot come back to it later. So it's just a pop-up to remind the students. And once they're done, they can move on to the writing. So the writing is a choice of 2 essay questions. So they have a sort of a question, and then it sort of says, how far do you agree or disagree with this? And then the students will just need to type up their answers. So there's a word count at the bottom, just here, that tells them how many words they've written. we recommend that the students write more than 200 words, and then they can use that word count below. So it's literally just typing their answers. Moving on then to the listening, as I said, each section gets more and more difficult. There's 5 sections for the listening as well, and there's always one or more tasks with varying lengths of the audio file. So sometimes they can be around 30 seconds, sometimes they can be up to 3 minutes or 4 minutes or 5 minutes as the sections get more and more difficult. So this is a mix of multiple choice questions, and then you've got, you can answer for section 2, for example, it's has this point been mentioned? So is this correct, incorrect, or not mentioned? And then again, it's just more sort of multiple choice questions. So sometimes there can be one or more tasks. So this is where you will see the bit at the bottom here. So when it's sort of highlighted light blue, that means that question has been completed. When it's blue, that's the question you're on. And then the rest of these in grey means that these questions are still yet to come. So as you're done, you will just click on the finish section, and that will take you to the next part, which is speaking. So speaking again is 5 sections, but it's only 20 minutes. Section 1 is really just to help the students get used to the speaking exercise. So all they need to do is state their name, their date of birth, and there will be a sentence which they just need to read. They actually have 60 seconds to do this, not 30 seconds. Sorry, my slides need updating. Sections 2 to 5 is then, one or more tasks. Sections 2 and 3 are a little bit sort of conversational, it's situational, a situation that you might find yourself in, and you've got 45 seconds to sort of answer the question. Section 4 is then for or against a proposition. So you have to answer for or against, and then you've got a minute to do that. And section 5 is always some sort of visual data, a graph, a chart, something like that. And you've just got to analyze that and just show them, just talk about what trends you can see in that graph. You've got 2 minutes to answer that. You cannot re-record your answers. So once the recording button is pressed, the microphone starts to capture your answers, and you will be able to see something like this, which shows that the recording is being captured. Once that's done, you can finish the section, and that's the end of the test. The students will just click on finish, and that's it. So in terms of the test preparation, as I mentioned, the students have the option to sort of read, well, they should read the handbook. They should also read the rules document that's listed there. And that's just to make sure that they don't accidentally or inadvertently, have things like Grammarly on, which is not allowed. I understand some of this stuff is not always, intentional by the students, but they do need to make sure that they are being fully compliant when they're taking the test. So I highly, highly recommend that the students read the handbook and the rules guide. We also have some free sample questions and answers available on the website. We've got some free videos on our YouTube channel, which show students the best way to get their writing score high, their reading, what to sort of expect. And similarly in the preparation course as well, there's sort of helpful tips, interactive tasks, and things like that, just to go through each of the 4 sections and what to sort of expect. So as I said, there's not a lot of material out there to help the students to pass the test, but that's because that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to test the students' language proficiency. They should already be at a position to, get that password 6. So, or meet the requirement, password 5, 5.56, whatever it is, they should already be at that position. So we're not here to teach them how to pass our test. We're here to give them some preparation material. A lot of this is free. It's just the preparation course, which is £40, but that comes with a practice test, which on its own is 20. So if the students want to buy a full practice test, they will receive a score report and helpful tips on how to improve on the day. That's £20. We've also got some free PowerPoint slides on our website as well that talk the students through exactly what I've sort of done today. This is just a final slide to sort of end on, just to show you how many universities and colleges are using our test. So in Cyprus, we are accepted by all of the higher education institutions there. So they use our test for admissions, and then also if the students want to take a sort of language a year doing the sort of language preparation. So that's all accepted in Cyprus. And in the UK, we're accepted by more than half of the UK institutions as well, which you can sort of see. So this is just some of the institutions. For a full list, please visit our website. If you're a partner agent, please do get in touch for the more up-to-date preparation materials, which we can share with you. And if you're a new agent that wants to know more about partnering up, please do drop me an email. My email address is just at the bottom there. I just wanted to check if anybody has any questions. Please do direct your questions in the Q&A function or in the chat. But that is the end of the webinar. So I'll just give you all a minute or so if anybody's got any questions. Let me just have a look. I'm just going to stop